Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B1 level ESL lesson. Today we're going to be reviewing the use of the zero and first conditionals to talk about the environment. Okay, plastic has transformed our world. Plastic is cheap, versatile, and lightweight. So we can see the use of plastic in containers, contact lenses, plastic kitchen tools, sports shoes, tents, and even polymer money. And we need to do a better job of managing the plastic that we do use. Some of it ends up in landfills, microplastics enter the ocean, and burning plastic releases dangerous chemicals. Okay, so will the future be plastic? So do you agree with Aisha, Nala, and Carolina? So Aisha says if we stop using plastic, the planet will recover. Nala says when we throw plastic away, it takes hundreds of years to break down. And Carolina says if we don't stop our addiction to plastic, people and animals will suffer. All right, so now you're going to listen to Jennifer talk about the connection between plastic and our health, and then answer the questions true or false.
Most of us are aware of the effects of plastic pollution on our environment, but how worried should we be about the effect of plastic on our health? When we try to dispose of plastic waste, it causes widespread pollution. Research has shown that microplastics, or tiny pieces of plastic, are present in our soil, our water, and even in the air we breathe. Currently, we have very little idea about the effect these have on our health.
Great, so microplastics are in the soil, the air, and the water. That is true. And researchers already know a lot about how microplastics affect our health. That was false. She said we know very little. And this was a definition. Microplastics are very small pieces of plastic that pollute the environment, usually less than 0.2 inches or 5 millimeters in length. They enter natural ecosystems from a variety of sources, including cosmetics, clothing, and industrial processes. All right, now go ahead and read the statements, and then we'll listen, and then according to Jennifer, which statement is true. If we grow crops in contaminated soil, the chemicals in the soil will probably affect us in some way. When we throw plastic away, it always ends up in landfills. If scientists don't study the effects of chemicals, we will continue to put plastic into landfills. And when we put plastic into landfills, humans and animals eat it.
When plastic is buried in landfills, it releases harmful chemicals into the soil. More research is needed to determine exactly what the long-term effects are likely to be. But if we grow crops in contaminated soil, it seems logical that some of the chemicals will be passed on to the animals or humans that consume them.
So the first one is true. If we grow crops in contaminated soil, the chemicals in the soil will probably affect us in some way. So remember that we use the first conditional to talk about a possible future. We use the first conditional to talk about a situation and a result in the future using if and then. If we grow crops in contaminated soil, the chemicals will probably affect us in some way. In a conditional sentence, there are two clauses. There's an if clause and a result clause. So which tense is used in the if clause? Well, here, if we grow crops, that's the simple present. And which tense is used in the result clause? The chemicals will probably affect us in some way. That's simple future. Naturally, we can use a negative form of a verb in the if clause and or the result clause. So if we don't stop using plastic, it will be everywhere. If we stop using plastic, we won't damage the environment. If we don't change our habits, we won't be able to save some species. So we can use a negative in the if and a positive in the result, positive in the if clause and a negative in the result, or you can use a negative in both the if clause and the result clause. All right, so now you need to match an if clause with a result clause to make statements about future possibilities. You can pause the video and try that on your own and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So if we recycle more plastic, it will reduce the amount of plastic that ends up in landfills. If animals scavenge garbage dumps, they will end up eating plastic. If you eat some types of seafood, you will probably consume microplastics. If we want to understand these processes better, we will need to carry out more research. And if we don't cure our addiction to plastic, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2050. Now make a first conditional statements with an if clause and a result clause, and they also will give you the verbs to use. So you can pause the video, try these on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So if we reduce the amount of plastic we use, we won't need to recycle as much. If you throw away plastic, most of it will end up in landfills. If we cook our meals at home, we won't use so much plastic packaging. If you eat fish, it will contain some microplastics. The world will be a very different place in the future in 50 years if we don't change our behavior. And if we use electric vehicles, we will help clean the air. So we use the zero conditional to describe an event and result that is always true or that happens often. The same results happen each time the event occurs. If I don't get 7 hours of sleep, I'm grumpy all day. When we throw plastic into the ocean, it stays there for hundreds of years. When and if both mean every time. We use the present tense in both the if clause and the result clause. When I get home from work, I eat a snack and listen to music. He doesn't answer his phone when I call. So now we're going to compare the zero and the first conditionals. When you arrive, we'll go to that new Italian restaurant. When John comes to New York, we always eat at Buvette. All right, so now go ahead and see if you can complete the text with if or then, and then when you're ready, you can listen to check your answers.
When plastic ends up in the ocean, it is often eaten by tiny marine animals. If these animals are then eaten by larger animals, the plastic will be passed higher up the food chain. If you eat fish, it will almost certainly contain some microplastics. Some studies show that if you eat other types of seafood, such as mussels, you will probably consume even more microplastics.
So we need to find a 0 conditional sentences and 3 first conditional sentences. So when plastic ends up in the ocean, it is often eaten by tiny marine animals. That's the 0 conditional because it has two clauses, both in the present tense. If these animals are eaten by larger animals, the plastic will be passed higher up in the food chain. That's a first conditional because we have simple present and simple future. If you eat fish, it will almost certainly contain some microplastics. That's another first conditional. And if you eat other types of seafood, you will probably consume even more microplastics, is the third first conditional sentence. So drastic action is extreme action, and Angela thinks we need to take drastic action immediately. So according to Angela, which of these statements are true? Go ahead and listen, and then we'll mark these true or false.
In some parts of the world, the most common way to get rid of plastic is by burning it. When you burn plastic, poisonous chemicals are released into the air. If you breathe in this air, it will have a negative effect on your health. We need to carry out more research if we want to understand these processes better. But one thing is clear. Our priority should be to take drastic action immediately to reduce the amount of plastic we manufacture. Once we have produced it, it's just too hard to get rid of.
Right, so in some parts of the world, the most common way to get rid of plastic is by burying it. That was false. She said it was by burning it. When you burn plastic, poisonous chemicals are released into the air. That is true. If you breathe in this air, it will have a negative effect on your health. That is true. We should reduce the amount of plastic we manufacture. That's true. And it is easy to get rid of plastic. That is false. We often use an imperative in the main clause to give an order about the present or future. You can use the imperative with 0 and first conditionals. The imperative can refer to the present. If you want to help the planet, stop using plastic. If you are hungry, eat something now. You won't have time to eat when we get to the airport. If you want to live longer, don't eat a lot of meat. The imperative can also refer to the future. If you have time after the meeting, meet me for coffee. If you can't sleep when you return from London, go for a long walk. Now we use unless to mean if not. You can use unless in 0 and first conditionals, as well as conditionals with the imperative. I feel tired and don't have energy unless I sleep 8 hours each night. Unless there's a problem, we will meet you at 9 a.m. sharp. Unless you hear from me, finish that report by the end of the week. We don't use future forms in an if clause. Likewise, we don't generally use future forms after unless or when. If we learn to recycle, we can clean up the planet. But you would not say if we will learn to recycle, we can clean up the planet. When you arrive, we'll go directly to the restaurant, but we don't say when you will arrive, we'll go directly to the restaurant. All right, so now complete each statement in the correct form. You can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, he is always hungry when he stops exercising. Unless you study harder, you will fail your final exams. When Joe leaves, we can talk privately. When we really want to stop climate change, we will need to change the way we live. Unless you know John personally, you won't be able to schedule a meeting with him. William won't speak to Giles unless Giles says that he is sorry. If you don't hurry up, we will miss the 5:36 train. It's always difficult to me to study when my sisters play in the house. You can run a marathon if you train enough. If Alan arrives at the office, call me immediately. Right, so now read each conditional and tell whether it is zero or first conditional. Does it describe a possible future event or an event and result that happens regularly? So go ahead and try these on your own and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So send me a text message when you arrive. That's a possible future event. Ice melts if it is exposed to heat. That is a regular event. If you aren't quiet, the teacher will kick you out of the classroom. Possible future. If you're not tired, come and watch a movie with me. Possible future. When you get to the apartment entrance, look for the name Alder and press on the button. That's a possible future. You'll never get to the train on time unless the taxi driver goes faster. Possible future. Susie always feels frightened when it starts to get dark. That's an event and result that happens regularly. He won't lose weight unless he changes his eating habits. Is possible future. And if we travel to South America, we will certainly visit Peru as a possible future event. Okay, Jennifer believes very strongly that plastic is harming the planet. Single-use plastics are plastic products that we only use once. In my opinion, they are one of the biggest threats to our environment. So you can answer these next questions in the comments if you would like. How many single-use plastic items do you use each day? And do you agree with Jennifer? Why or why not? Now look at the 4 squares in the paragraph that show where you could add the sentence. So where does this sentence fit Beth? So we need to continue to spread the word about the importance of recycling. So should it go here? Letter A? Should it go letter B, letter C, or letter D? So letter D is probably the best place for that sentence to be inserted. Okay, now read the first part of Jennifer's article and answer the questions. You can pause the video and read on your own, or you can follow along as I read. We have already reached the point where we are not able to cope with the amount of plastic waste we produce. When plastic is produced, it is very difficult to get rid of. If we don't rethink our approach to manufacturing mountains of plastic, we will never be able to get the situation under control. So the first thing we need to do is stop making so many new plastic products. So where is the zero conditional? Where is the first conditional? And what is the solution that Jennifer offers? Well, when plastic is reduced, it is very difficult to get rid of. That is the zero conditional. If we don't rethink our approach to manufacturing mountains of plastic, we will never be able to get the situation under control. That's the first conditional. And her solution is to stop making so many new plastic products. All right, now complete the sentences with the options provided. You can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. Okay, most plastic waste ends up in landfills. And here we would insert D. When plastic is disposed of in this way, it breaks down very slowly and chemicals are released into the soil. If animals scavenge garbage dumps, this would be letter A. They sometimes end up eating plastic, thinking it is food. If we plan to continue with landfills, we need to manage them better. When plastic is thrown away, about 10% of it ends up in the ocean, just like land animals. And here we would put sentence C. Marine animals sometimes try to eat plastic. Sea turtles and dolphins often get tangled up in discarded ropes or fishing nets. The solution here is simple. We need to stop dumping plastic into the oceans. If we don't cure our addiction to plastic, the last one is letter B. There will be more plastic than fish in the ocean by 2050. Right, so choose one of these topics or think of one of your own and then write down some notes. Write a list of the negative effects, what particular behavior causes each negative effect, and how can we change the behavior or the action. And then use some notes to talk about your topic, and then you can use the checklist to come up with an answer. And if you'd like to share that, you can put your idea in the comments. Here's an example. We should eat less of these foods and not eat the food produced by big companies. Today, eating meat and dairy products is not good for our health. When we raise animals, we put antibiotics and chemicals into their food. And if we eat meat and dairy products, we also take in some of the antibiotics and chemicals. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.